Yeah. Hi, Sherrod.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm fine. You?
Not bad, not bad. Well, Coach, just right off the bat, I just wanted to ask you about a number of your players have been involved in some of the recent protests, Coach, and I just wanted to get your general thoughts on their involvement and engagement in that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been great. And I think, as in paying attention from afar, but also having individual conversations with everybody on our team and knowing, obviously, what's happened has been appalling and been brutal and been hurtful and painful. And, I'm really, I've said this many times. I think the NBA is amazing. And I think our players are amazing. And we're lucky that we have such great people representing us with the Celtics. It's just, I can't say enough good things.
All right, next question will go to Dan Roach.
Hi, Brad. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Dan.
Hi. Just to follow up on that a little bit, of not just from the Celtics, but from your perspective of what's gone on the last several days, really the last week, but it's intensified, obviously, in the last several days, and just kind of where you sit on everything we've heard from some NBA coaches and just your thoughts on what's going on.
Yeah, again, I mean, extreme sadness. And obviously, I think that a lot of people feel in the pain and then transfers to anger. And, I wrote a letter to our guys, this weekend. And it took me a while to put down exactly what I wanted to say. But, I think the thing that I wanted them to know is that, every decent person is hurting. Every decent person feels the pain of the African American community. But I also don't want to pretend like I know the exact distinct pain. And so what I wanted them to know is I'm with them. And, I thought that was really important. And I'm really, again, so it's so great to see so many guys so active. But I know a lot of the guys, I've talked to a lot of guys that, everybody's hurting. Let's put it that way. And so, the leadership that they've shown is terrific. And hopefully the most important thing, Dan, is that, we can have short-term healing, we can have near-term gains, and we can have long-term sustainable action that, creates change.
Okay, next question will go to Bob Schron.
Hi, Coach. Can you hear me?
I can, Bob. Hi.
Hi. It's heartbreaking. I can't say enough about it. I second everything you're saying. I didn't know if, I guess to segue, if I possibly can, to get it back to basketball, the role that you guys will be playing in hypothetically resuming the season. Doc has his like a maxim saying, win the weight. In other words, stay focused on the task. How do you perceive the team? You guys, in terms of getting the season going again and trying to win a championship, and as a subtext, what kind of importance does that play in the culture to get the NBA season back up and running? I know that's a lot. Thank you.
I would just say that, obviously, as far as, and I think every coach is in this boat right now. Nobody's talking about basketball
right.
this week.
Right.
And, and when the pandemic began, basketball is also an afterthought. And so I think what we've tried to focus on this entire period was first and foremost during the pandemic, the mental well-being of everyone in the organization, And that's been obviously intensified this week. And then the second part is when we have focused on basketball, it's been much more focused on the concept of staying a week away from your best shape, because, you know, we're all on call. We don't know exactly, even now, as you read, you know, and I'm on some of these calls, but like I'm reading this and know the same things you know. And so like ultimately we're all on call, and if they choose to resume the season and they tell us when, then we all have to be ready. And there's still a lot of discussions going on with that regard.
Thank you.
Okay, next question will go to Mike Petralia.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Appreciate that. Hold on a minute.
Can't hear you, Mike.
Yeah, 1 second. Can you hear me now? Brad, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Thanks for doing this, Brad. I'm just in a very generic sense, what has the pause and what has happened over the last several days with regard to the protests made you feel about your appreciation of basketball, what it means to you, and what it means to you and your family in the big picture? I know that's a pretty broad question, but I'm sure you've been doing a lot of inward searching, if you will.
Well, sports are powerful things because there's very, at least in my lifetime, there's been very little way to feel a part of a community than when you're like truly moving towards like a common goal and a common desire. And, you know, that's what we ultimately all hope that we can do. In sports, that happens every time you get in the locker room, and people from all walks of life are joined in that. And the relationships that you get a chance to build, develop, learn about others, be a part of a team, that's irreplaceable. And, you know, I've said that from day one, not only from my own perspective, but from my family's perspective, you know. And I've always thought that, you know, I love the fact that my kids have grown up members of diverse teams, you know, both racially, internationally, whatever the case may be, their whole lives. And but yeah, so sports it's special to be a part of it, and I don't think it's a huge surprise that our guys are able to lead with such great courage, because, you know, they put themselves out there every day on a lot less meaning in kind of a meaningless game when you think about it, right? It means a lot to all of us, but the idea of it, you know, the impact that we all can have on each other is pretty special. And, you know, those relationships that I've made as part of a team and what I've learned from players and staff and really the friendships you create with all those people and the people you're coaching against, you know, is pretty special. I'm thankful for it.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, next question will go to John Corrales. John?
John, can't hear you.
There it is.
There
you go.
Okay. The league is predominantly young black men, but the league's power structure is overwhelmingly white. At a time like this, when young black men around the world, around the country, are fighting for a piece of the power, a piece of equality, what do you do on a personal level, and what can the league do to help achieve a better balance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think from my own personal standpoint, John, first of all, I think the players have done an amazing job of leading and also, you know, taking control of their careers, being vocal on what's important to them. And the league, I think, generally has done a really good job of embracing that and, you know, really encouraging people to be active. And there's no question that, like many other leagues, those things have to be addressed. The one thing that we were on a coaches call with all 30 coaches the other day, and one thing that I heard from a number of coaches is that as white coaches, we have a lot of responsibility here. Like this is obviously there are we may not be able to know the depth of the pain of the colleagues that are black or our players that are black, our assistants that are black. But we have a responsibility to be not only empathetic, but to help drive change, right? And so that's something, as you saw in the Coaches Association statement, you saw it in the Celtics statement. I mean, again, we have all been in these conversations before, and you're moved to drive change, and sometimes actionable steps lead to what you think is progress, but this sure doesn't look like progress. And so what we need to do is play our part and make sure that we're part of long-term sustainable change.
Thanks.
Okay, next question will be Gary Washburn.
Hey, Brad, how's it going?
Hi, Gary.
How much do you've got basically a roster mostly of young black men coming from different backgrounds, and I'm sure it's the same at Butler, where you have to try to know the guys you recruit and the guys who play for you. But you also don't relate as much because of the differences to Jalen or Jason or Marcus. How much do you try to know that and get to know them on that intimate level? How much do you learn from them? What's the fine line from trying to act like, hey, I know what you guys are going through, you really don't, because you're trying to make them feel comfortable? And how much do you have to just listen to them and say, okay, whenever you're ready to talk to me, I'll listen and understand, and I won't judge?
Yeah, and also be, I think, aware enough that I may not be the person that somebody turns to, right? But it's important that we continue to provide resources all across our league, our organization, so that they do. And I hope that all of our guys feel comfortable should they choose to do so. Yeah, I've been in a lot of those conversations, Gary, and we were in a lot of them 4 years ago. Obviously, when Kaepernick was taking the knee prior to the season. And from those 3 weeks of training camp, being able to sit in those meetings, being able to listen to our guys, I think that gave me a whole new understanding of just how much change is needed. And at that time, as an organization, we tried to make sure that we were doing our part, again, to create actionable steps. But there's no question everybody's got to do more. And so, again, I think, being able to be a listener, hearing, our players talk about profiling, talk about discrimination, being empathetic towards that, but also being able to acknowledge that, again, I may not know, right, the depth of that, but no, I'm with you. Like, if you need me, I'm here. And we've got a lot of people that are here and we want to help. And so that's the way that I approach it. And I think those are really hard, right, conversations and things to talk about. I think, again, the pain that everybody feels, has been there for a long, long time. And the lack of progress is too jarring. And so, what we need to all do is do our part. And part of, I think, my responsibility in that is, yes, listening and learning.
Thank you.
Okay, next question is from Trey Dare.
Hey, Brad. Hope you and your family doing well here after these last 2.5 months or so. Wanted to get your thoughts on a sense of pride for just your players in the community. What we saw from Jalen and being willing to drive all the way down to Atlanta. It's something that was important to him. Also, the players in Boston who have really embraced, maybe what being in Boston means to them. going out and peacefully being a part of the people. And also, just to shift gears, your thoughts on the proposed Disney model, maybe some of the concerns just from a personal level of some of the stuff you may have to go through.
Well, I said it earlier, like I couldn't be more proud to be in the NBA, to be with the Celtics, and to be surrounded by the people I get to go to work with every day. All that they do, not only in front of the camera's eyes, but all that they do to lead and find the right, to lead for what's right, I think is really impressive. And, again, I'm just honored to be a part of that team, of those guys. And, we do talk about, the idea of real leadership, right? There a lot of people can be followed, and sometimes people mislead and divide and, do things in their own self-interest. And then the real leaders, unite people and are doing things to simply promote what is right. And I think that our guys are amazing in that regard. And I think that extends throughout, the players and the coaches all across the league. It's a real inspiring group to be around. As far as the Disney model goes, I just don't there feels like there's probably a lot of stuff left to cover from a basis standpoint. It makes sense. The idea of, isolating everyone and ultimately trying to make it as, an environment that has as less infection as possible, I guess would be the right way to say it. But I think there's a lot of T's to still cross and I's to dot. And, I know that the powers that be are working on that.
Okay, next question will go to Abby Chin.
Thank you. Hi, Brad.
Hi, Abby.
Doing well. My question is, I know we've talked a lot about the players and Jalen and Marcus, but what's being done security-wise? Are they being assisted, I don't know, via the league or the team in those respects? And what is the message from you guys offering support, but also wanting them to be safe?
Well, first and foremost, the message is we want them to, stand for what they believe in, and we want to be supportive of that. And, that's been clear the whole time I've been there, but has been reinforced over and over and over, from Wick on down. And I think that's been a big part of why I've enjoyed working here so much. As far as the security goes, that would be a question for our security team. I know that they are certainly talking to our guys all the time, and that would be for them. What we obviously have wanted to do is, we want all of our guys to be safe, and we want them because we obviously care about that. So that would be a question for our security team. I don't know the exact depth of their conversations.
Next question will go to Keith Smith.
Hi, Brad. Thinking about the season restarting potentially at a single site without fans, have you given any thought to how different your approach needs to be to games without the normal environment that the players are used to playing in?
Yeah, I've given a lot of thought to all this stuff, Keith. Like all the rest of you, been sitting in my house for 3 months. So I've thought about this stuff over and over and over. But I think there will be some interesting parts if we were to resume play without fans. And obviously, I think the competitiveness will be the same, in my opinion. When you see these guys go after each other in practice, or if you go to practices of great players playing against each other in the summer in Vegas at the USA Basketball or whatever the case may be, some of those, the competitiveness will be tremendous. I think the sound will be great for TV. I think people would love to hear more of the coaches, players, referees, the dialogue between everybody. So I'm interested to see if we do get in that scenario, what would be, what the league will decide on, pumping in noise or not, because I think the voices of the game would be, a whole new world and a lot of fun. And it would, to be honest, I think it would be most impactful in kind of the depth of what these guys do possession to possession from a basketball standpoint and how much communication goes into it.
All right. Any final questions for Coach? Steve, I see you raising your hand. Hold on one second. All right, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I guess with regard to that second point, would they have to run a version on ESPN2 without the swears? But the more important question for me, anyways, the idea of being at a site like that, you have road trips, and a long one can last a couple of weeks. This you're talking about potentially a couple of months.
Yeah.
Just how difficult can that be, Brad?
I think first and foremost, the way that I look at it from a personal standpoint is just simply family, right? I think and I know that question's being asked and bannered about the league, and the league has a great responsibility should they choose to move forward and, making sure it's a safe environment. So I understand all the different things they're wrestling with, but yeah, as a person who absolutely loves being around his wife and kids every day, that the length of time, I think is certainly, a factor.
Okay, next question will go to Dan Roach.
Hey, Brad. Just a two-part question. One would be, in listening to Sean Grandy talk about Jalen on the Sports Hub yesterday, just what he was saying about how he thinks Jalen's going to go on to bigger and things in life. Just he could be a senator. He could do so many things. Just your thoughts on when you heard that he got in a car and drove 15 hours down to Atlanta for what he did. And also to follow what you were just talking about, in our family, we're having discussions about what's going on. I was wondering, you don't have to say too much if you don't feel like it, but just what the discussions have been like in your family, with your children about what's going on.
Well, the first question about Jalen, Jalen's greatest impact, as good as he is at basketball, won't be in basketball. I just think he's a special guy. He's a special leader. He's smart, but he has courage. He's got a lot of great stuff to him. And, I think we recognize that when we drafted him, but I think that he has, been, even more unbelievable every day, every year. I think I've always personally really enjoyed listening to him and talking to him about things outside of basketball. He told me he was going down there on Thursday, obviously, you knew that he was. I certainly am not surprised by his, him taking a leadership role. That's who he is. And then as far as like talking to my kids, that's a good question. I think one of the things that I think, and Tracy and I were talking about this a little bit. Our kids have only grown up around basketball teams their whole lives. So again, they've been around a diverse set of people, people they look up to, and friends forever. And one of the things I think we've talked about needing to do a better job of is talking to them about not everybody's growing up that way, and not everybody sees the world in that way. And it's important that, we understand that we use all the good that we feel and are helpful in promoting the right change. And so it's been really, uplifting to listen to my kids the last couple of days.
And final question for today is going to go to Abby Chin.
I'm sorry to bring it back to basketball again, but the practice facility opened yesterday. I know you can't be there, but are players getting in, and what can be the value in those individual workouts?
Yeah, we have a number of players that are here in Boston. We have a number of players that are going in. The value of those individual workouts, I think right now, especially with the facility being back opened, is you're back on the NBA court with all the NBA lines. You're able to expand and do a little bit more conditioning on a full court. We've structured all of those times as such so that it's a very tight schedule, so that guys, it's voluntary. If they don't want to come, they don't have to come. But they have a set time because we have to be cognizant of all the NBA, state health, and CDC guidelines with regard to the rules that are in place. And so I don't think it's the end all be all to be back in the facility right now. I didn't think that on May 8th. I don't think that right now. Our guys all over the place have done have been very committed to staying a week away from their best shape. We've had constant conversations with that. And it is great that they're able to get back, and I think they like it. And I think maybe more than anything, Abby, is when we really start, is that you have, the strength equipment. You don't have limited strength equipment. You've got everything you could possibly need from a strength and conditioning standpoint. That's probably the best benefit. But the way it is, like, you got somebody behind those guys as they're lifting, ready to clean it up right after they're done. It's just, it's amazing the work. I certainly should single out our, Jason McKenna, who runs our facility, and Phil Coles and Art Horn, and all the work they've done on preparing that facility to be, the safest place you could possibly work out.